Welcome to the Scent of Beauty. My name is Susan, and this video is titled Like. We are very familiar with the word love. As we approach February 14th, that date is embedded in our hearts and many of our minds that it's Valentine's Day, a day that is set aside for us to express our love uh, for each other. But I find that it is equally as important to know if we're like in a relationship. Honestly, this has been the most difficult video that I've made to date, formulating the ideas and getting just the knowledge about what like really means and how important, how imperative it is as we relate to one another um, in the spirit of love. Now, we know love in the context of a noun, more a thing. Usually, love is expressed with that enthusiasm for that thing. I love my house. I love my, say, boots. I love my shoes. I love my snow blower. I love my job. I love you. I love my dress. Not even a differentiative, not even a differentiative breath, loving an object and professing love for a human being is found in the same context. So that's not the love I'm referring to. I'm referring to the as love as a verb. Um, in the experience, in the expression, without even verbalizing. That's the love that I'm talking about right now in this video. There is a language of love from a verb context. It's a conscious language. Like has a like has a variety of ways of expressing itself. We can like what a person represent. We could like their power, the power that they possess. We could like monetary wealth that is attached to an individual. We could like the way they lavish us with love, right? That's another like. Like is an attention to the details, to the detailed act, or I should say actions. Like in the form of adoration is also an action, but it's filled with personal gratification that the giver receives. It's kind of self-rewarding. There is a satisfaction extended through just the pleasure, but pleasure from the standpoint of like. Sometimes what is pleasant from the one that is expressing themselves is not always pleasant to the person that's receiving what's being extended. I love you without the component of I like you, whether it's a verbal proclamation or an action. Without like, I've heard it said, right, that we can live without a spleen. And that's true. However, the crucial role the spleen plays within the body as a whole, right? If that's omitted, then there's repercussions. So that's a blanket statement. It's like love without the extension of like. It's a it's the same. It's a half truth. The other part to that statement, yes, we can live without a spleen, but living without a spleen makes a person more susceptible to infections, and it helps to fight off bacteria. So what we can live without, we have to ask ourselves, can I live well and comfortably and peacefully and whole as a whole individual if I don't have that piece of myself, what I require? And so often we live without being liked in a relationship. And my question is, or I should say it's more of a statement. And what I ask myself is, even if I could say live without a spleen, quote unquote, live without being like, what about just developing the preference not to live without the ultimate best? Having love and like conjoined in the relationships that we're having with ourselves and with other people. See, having love as a noun, a thing, what usually accompanies that is hostility. That when it's a noun, we usually tend to have people that are hostile. We have to take the scent of, or be able to smell the scent of the pheromones that people are releasing in our lives. Sometimes people are releasing and they're filled with that charge of aggression, right? That pathological anger and that pathological bullying, right? And they just have life crises, one right after another. Personal internal turmoil become a public display of strong impulses inspired by their feelings of anger and resentment. And I could hear it. No one is perfect. We all get frustrated. We all get offended. Yes, but there are some people, and we could look within ourselves also, that their impulses are so extreme that they themselves cannot control it. And so this one day out of the year, these extravagant floral arrangements and these wonderful cards that are filled with love in the written form cannot erase the rest of the year living with hostility. Those 3-letter words, I love you. But usually there is a curve, and we omit the curve and the statement that underlines, but I don't like you. If we could take a moment and ask ourselves, can you or can I read those languages, those writings on the wall fluently? Because what that helps us to gain is logic in loving relationships when it's from a verb. Some of us have been struggling for years to understand, to read, to comprehend what we are seeing. We are confused because we believe that this individual loves us, but we don't have enough information to know, wait a minute, I think this is, they simply don't like us. I call it, personally, I call it dyslexia love, because on the continuum, there is not like in the, in the grooves. The reason why I mentioned dyslexia, it's because there is a misnomer that dyslexia only stems from, a person, taking a letter and that letters are transposed. But if we take a moment and look at unconscionable actions that comes from people that have professed, I love you, we can take a look at the sequential versus just the verbal. And it goes like this, and this is what I mean. Say for instance, love dyslexia, right? And just like dyslexia, people with these beautiful mindsets, right? They might see a pattern that presents itself this way: A, V, B, E, F, G, H, I, J, Z, Y, X, X, Y, Z. Well, we understand A is the first letter in the alphabet, it's the beginning. We also know E, F, G, H, I, J. It's sequential, it's in the middle. We know Z, Y, X, it's backwards. And we know X, Y, Z are the last three letters in the alphabet. In hostile relationship, we see V, B, D, G. That's a hostile impulse. Then we see J, J, A, hostile impulse. And what we try to do, we try to create fillings in these love deficit areas because it makes no sense to us. I'm going to stop this video, and this is part 1 of Light.